Hi! It is time for some folklore. Now, I will say that this story has some cannibalism in it, so if that's not for you, you don't want to be here. Viewer discretion is advised. So we're going to be talking about the Wendigo, the evil spirit that devours human flesh. It is a Native American folklore, specifically towards the Algonquian, I'm so sorry I said that wrong, speaking Native Americans. It's in the Canada and Minnesota area. So I just want to preface that, or make sure you guys know that not all Native American folklore is just this wide thing of all Native Americans. It's generally certain tribes, certain areas for these beliefs or stories that are being told. So just remember that. So the first, I believe that this was mostly a spoken language, that there wasn't written records, predating, but the first written record of the Wendigo was in 1636. It was reported by a French missionary. Yeah, a French missionary. A Josette missionary, something like that. That's a little minor detail. His name was Paul Lee Juan. Oh my gosh, I'm butchering everything and we're hardly into this video. I'm sorry. Eventually, just now, all of the big words are basically gone, and so don't worry, you want to listen to me mispronounce every little thing. So the Wendigo's location is normally in the woods, in the cold woods, winter months. It's, typically, yeah, and it's up in Canada area in Minnesota woods. Wendigos are said to be ash gray, death gray, maybe even a green color. They're not the most beautiful creatures. Their skin is stretched over their bones, so it's almost like translucent because the skin is just stretched so thin. They're described as almost translucent, so you can see, and they're so thin. The creatures are very thin and very emaciated, and so they look kind of like what I would think of as a zombie, because their eyes are sunken in. And you can see their bones, their nose is kind of deteriorating, kind of, I think. I will say the descriptions of this, it varies from story to story, okay? That's one thing I'm going to preface. The one thing I'm going to say is that these, depending on who's telling the stories, the locations, what sources you're going to, there's differences, okay? One of the other differences that I've found is that some people describe them as very large, very tall, 15-20 feet tall, but super thin, that when they're standing, sideways like this, you can't see them. But then there's other sources that say that they're human size. They have long yellow fangs, and it's also said that they have a very long, creepy tongue that is dark blue, and claws that are very scary and big. They have yellow to red eyes, depending on who you ask, but their eyes are supposed to be one of the scariest features. They're supposed to be round, like an owl's eyes, very large and round. Also, their size, they can grow supposedly based on how many humans they eat. They grow as they eat, but they still remain thin. They're also sometimes described as like kind of hairy, so there's that. I was actually talking to Amy and I was like, oh, I've been reading about the Wendigo and looking into that, and Amy's like, is that the that's kind of like the Yeti, right? And I'm like, no, not at all. But the more that I researched it, like, I could see where that connection would be made, because they are in the cold, they are large wood-like creatures, but they're not the Yeti. In recent, modifications of the way that they look, they now have antlers. Why? I don't know. Like, are you guys afraid of antlers? Are antlers like inherently scary? I don't know. But the older folklore legends don't describe them having antlers, but that's kind of like an adaptation, I guess, that we've added over time. I don't think that the Native Americans added that. I do believe that that is more of like a, we added it for movies and appearances, but I'm not 100% sure. They are described as smart. Don't worry, we're going to get into the creepy stuff, okay? They are described as smart and that they can mimic human voices. So they'll use their voice to call you into the woods, or use somebody else's voice to call into the woods. So, they'll pretend to be your grandma, be like, come here, Johnny boy, come here, I got some food for you. I don't know. Or help me. Anyways, they're described as smart, fast, super strong, and very intelligent. Scary. Human eating monsters that are scary. Also, what I found was that some describe the Wendigo as like a spirit that takes over a human body, that then it becomes this like creepy creature. But I've also seen it more as the human just turns into the Wendigo by eating human flesh. The Wendigo has an insatiable hunger. The hunger of it is insatiable. It cannot be gratified, so it just eats and eats and eats. So some of the stories of how to become a Wendigo is like to be overcome by greed. So that's where their hunger is insatiable. It's never met. Kind of like if you have all of that greed and the consumerism, you just want more and more and more, and you're never satisfied. That is one version, but there's another version as well that I found. It is created by a human that eats human flesh, that succumbs to cannibalism. Also, if you stay in contact with one for too long, you can turn into one potentially. There was a couple of different versions, but the main one that I found was that if you consume human flesh. So here's what back in the winter, in the cold months of winter, in that time, a lot of Native Americans became very, very hungry. Famine. There wasn't a ton of food, right? They were starving. And as a result, sometimes people became food. I'm not judging. So like, I would like to think that I wouldn't consume human flesh because I was hungry, especially my family. But it wasn't unheard of, and it was a survival technique. I mean, some people, from what I was understanding, were actually dying from starvation. So maybe they were eating people who were already, you know, passing away because of the lack of food. I'm not sure. It's hard to even consider, like, how hungry you must be or feel to, you know, consume human flesh. But I could see that need if people around you are already, you know, dying from starvation. I think that this story and what I was understanding, or my, you know, understanding is that, like, it's kind of told to ward off that, you know, like, if you consume human flesh, you're gonna turn into this creature, so just don't do it. At least that's what I think. Like, I believe, like, sometimes folklores or stories have a purpose, and then that might be kind of the purpose. You can call me on it if I'm wrong or you don't agree. That's cool. I'm not, you know, Native American. My tribe is not part of this tribe. I don't really understand everything. This is just my take on it, okay? So, to become a Wendigo, you have to eat people. That's the main thing that I've heard. And how do you kill a Wendigo? You kill a Wendigo by burning it. From some of the readings that I understood or read was that a Wendigo heart is like ice cold. And to kill it, you have to, you know, destroy its heart with fire. But I also heard or read, I also read that you have to use silver. So silver spear, silver bullets, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's a new adaptation, because I was thinking I should have looked this up. It just came to me, but did the tribe there have access to silver? I mean, they very well could have. I don't know. I don't know much about silver making or anything like that, but if you know this, let me know. I should have looked it up, but it literally just came to me, like, was silver available? I don't know. Anyways, they also, you might have to dismember it and burn each individual part. And I also read that the spirit can still exist even after, and will just find another it'll just find another human host that meets the criteria. So, like, the spirit doesn't actually die, but that body that it has taken over does, which I thought was interesting. But if you view it as a spirit that takes over because you know, consume human flesh, it would make sense, I guess, that the spirit or the demon inside of that host continues to live on. But how do you kill that? I couldn't find. The other thing that I want to touch on is Wendigo psychosis, which is a proven illness that is a cultural bound illness. So it specifically affects the, tribes that are around this area that have heard these stories, that believe these stories. Like, these aren't just like stories. These some of these people like really believe these things. And so it's a cultural bound illness that is proven, or is, people believe this is an existing illness. It's been diagnosed, okay? And like, when I was looking this up, there were a lot of people who had a lot of hate or negative things to say about this, and I don't want to hear that. Like, this is something that people have diagnosed and believe, and like doctors believe this exists. So I don't want to hear educated guesses to insult an entire group of people that this doesn't exist, okay? Because I saw a lot of like hate, looking that up. But it is described as an intense craving for human flesh and an intense fear of becoming a cannibal. And sometimes cannibalism happens. Normally, what I was understanding was malnutrition and anorexia is like present in the people who feel this way. I believe that a lot of like these people weren't. I believe that there was a lot of malnutrition. That's what it sounds like to me, that malnutrition and hunger was something that was not uncommon. And as a result, people were afraid of becoming a Wendigo and consuming human flesh, probably to live. Like, it wasn't like they were just, John Wayne Gacy or something like that. He ate flesh, right? He was one that ate flesh. I don't know. But that it was legit, people who were very, very hungry. There are a few cases of this like being, documented. Several, not just a few. I think I couldn't figure out how many, but at least 30. I can't tell you for sure though. And one of the cases of somebody being diagnosed with this was a man called Swift Runner in 1876. And from what I could tell was that one of the family members had passed the day before from hunger or malnutrition. I didn't look up this case too much, so don't like quote me, but somebody had passed away from hunger, and then the next day this guy killed several children and the mother and consumed their flesh. And he said, I was possessed by the Wendigo spirit to do this, yada yada. And unfortunately, people died from this, and he was sentenced to death and was killed as well. Because of his actions. So that was just one of the stories that I read where this was like a diagnosed, thing. Also, when I was reading all of this is unrelated, but sort of related, okay? sort of. I had heard a long time ago about a people in Papua New Guinea. Gosh, you guys, I know. It's been a long time since I've heard this story. It's not a story, it's an actual fact of something that had happened. But the people in that area, they consume their dead. They eat their dead, particularly the brain, from my understanding. And they did this because it was gonna help them to the other world, something along those lines. It wasn't, you know, to harm people or like their belief was they were helping them reach the other world, from what I remember. God, you guys, I should have done better research. But anyways, there was a disease that happened from eating the brains, essentially like mad cow disease. It's called Kuru, Kuru, and it's from eating a type of protein, so known as Prion, Prion disease, and it made you really sick. And sometimes with this disease is like it doesn't present right away, so it could be years before you know that you have it. You could even have already passed away from something else, and then somebody consumes your brain and also gets sick. It gives you like tremors, and you lose coordination. A lot of these people, I think, looked very malnutrition, like very thin. So, you know, maybe people, you know, there were eating brains and getting sick, and that's where the Wendigo came from. I don't know. I really think that this story was told to ward people off from eating, you know, human flesh because of their hunger to survive. I don't know. So you'll have to give me your thoughts and ideas down below. I really hope that I did this story justice, particularly because I do take it more seriously than, you know, the other two that I did, because this is something that is cultural versus just a story like Bloody Mary. You know, this is a story that is held true to a group of people, or, you know, important to a group of people. So I hope I did okay. I know this one made me a little bit nervous, but I have only seen this represented in Supernatural. They did a Wendigo. I know that there are other stories and other, you know, movies and things about the Wendigo, you know, where they added the antlers and stuff. I don't understand. This creature is scary enough without the antlers. Like, I just don't understand the antlers. Why? I don't know. Anyways, this story was suggested by a subscriber of mine in my community tab, so thank you to that subscriber for suggesting this. I learned a lot, and it was fun. So I can't wait to do more. I am working on getting better at getting my face done while telling the story. It's a struggle to get my whole face done on camera while doing it. I don't know any other better way. I'm working on it. I don't know how like these other YouTubers do it, but it's a struggle, okay? It's a struggle, and I'm failing. thank you for being here. If you have any suggestions on how I can make these videos better, please let me know, because I'm going to continue this. And yeah, bye.